We good?
Yep.
All right. We're going to resume the board meeting that came into session at 4 p.m. today. We went right into executive session at that time. With that, though, we would like to stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we're going to move on to item 5, the student program highlight of the month. And Mackenzie, I believe you're leading it off.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Mackenzie Davis, the innovation teacher at the elementary school, or some of them like to call me Mrs. Innovation. So, which is probably the coolest thing that has ever happened to me. But yeah, we are just super excited with just all that we've seen this last fall, starting this program, getting it kind of rolling. We had second graders, have some little pictures up there, sorry. We had second graders who were working on looking at erosion and how to prevent landslides from causing so much damage. And sand was everywhere, but it was so worth it because they were just acting like engineers, and they were second graders. We had kindergarten. They were working on building and designing structures that serve different functions. So we, did the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf, and they were using sticks and straw and bricks to make houses that we blowed down with a mini leaf blower, which was amazing. They had a blast. I thought there would be more tears, but there wasn't, so it was good. So they just learned a lot about creating and designing things to serve a purpose. We also had in 4th grade, we were looking at the earth and how humans have an impact on it and how natural disasters have an impact on it. So we looked at recycling. We also looked at upcycling, which was kind of new, where they were taking something you would normally throw away or recycle even, and turning it into a brand new product, like a pencil holder, or that's Thanos' gauntlet from Avengers. So the student who made it was just really proud and told me she uses it all the time when she plays with her friends. So just seeing students use things in different ways has been just an incredible highlight. Probably the most relevant would be our 5th graders. They were working on a module called infection detection, which, as you can imagine, resonated really well. They were looking at how do germs spread and how do we prevent them, and they were even they did some fictional contact tracing where they experienced all the fun that is. And so they were creating their own experiments to see how to stop the prevent germs. And so they had this glow germ that you can kind of see there, where they had a UV light, this lotion that they can see, so they could see before and after. So they designed these experiments where they were taking their, is it better to wash your hands for 3 minutes or 30 seconds? Or is it better if you use antibacterial soap or bar soap? And hopefully we have a lot of really clean 5th graders coming out of this. Would be a great plus. But one group in particular, there were 3 kids that chose the same testable question. They wanted to know if hand dryers would work better than paper towels. Mm-hmm. And so they wrote their experiment, they figured out the materials they needed, they set the procedure. And so as they're working through it, I brought in my hair dryer for them to dry it out. And they saw that the hand dryer worked better. And so we, finished up for the day. I see them for 35 minutes about every 6 days on the Johnny rotation schedule. So I didn't really, it was a good lesson, it went well, didn't really think a lot more of it. But their teacher came back to me 2 weeks later and said, I don't know if you know, but when you were doing this in innovation, we were talking about the Bill of Rights and how amendments can be made if things need to be changed. And so they had written a letter to Mrs. Smith asking if they could install hand dryers instead of paper towels. And they considered is it too loud for the school, or maybe it's better for the earth if they have paper towels. But the coolest thing about this, it gives me goosebumps because it wasn't an assignment. It wasn't write a persuasive letter to try to change something. They did this on their own, using the data that they had found in innovation and what they were learning in their classroom. And I think that's exactly what this is designed to do, and helping kids see that they can improve and make things better. Um, yeah, so lots of highlights. So I get super excited talking about it because they are just, they're taking off with it, and more than what I can even doing. So there are a few barriers that we have found. Obviously, this year is very special, and the circumstances create some difficulty. This was a survey that we did with teachers at the very beginning of the year, just kind of asking, how can innovation help you? What do you want to know? What can we do? And just overwhelmingly, they want to know about the standards that are being addressed, the vocabulary that they can use in their classroom that we're learning about in innovation. They also want to know ways to extend it, like ways that they can carry on that work in the classroom. Obviously, this year has created a bit of a difficulty with that, just the collaboration piece. Because if I would have known that teacher was working on the Bill of Rights, like we could have done a lot more with that. But moving forward, I think this program is designed for that collaboration, and because it also affects the students. Obviously, a lot of this is designed to be in groups of like 3 or 5 people sitting around a table solving a problem. I mean, it even has like a decision matrix that they can work through so that they can, bring the best pieces of their work together. And so, with that in mind, I feel that we are seeing a lot of incredible things from this program. There's also kind of like, because of the year that we're in, there's some parts of it that it's just not its like full potential. So part of me is like, it's kind of a soft launch. It's kind of our foundational year of figuring out how this works, how we can build, take these project-based learning activities and connect them to standards, which that has been my professional and personal goal, is to bring these together to align our Ohio standards to these projects and modules, and kind of connecting them as well to our science critical concepts, just so that students know exactly what the goal is here. Teachers know exactly what they're getting from innovation, and we can kind of support and complement innovation with the work that's also being done in the classroom. So that's a little bit about how we're doing at the elementary level. It's been an absolute honor and blast just to get to spend time with these kids and see just what they can do with this opportunity. So, thank you.
Any questions? Questions?
I was just going to comment. Thank you, Mackenzie. My 3 boys are all very fortunate enough to be at the elementary. And I was going to say one thing that I learned at home from this class, which I think is really excellent, is I might not be the only parent who has kids who quit when things get hard. Please, maybe I am the only one. And so something that my 4th grader said is, it's hard, but it's good, and you don't want to quit. And it's really exciting to see my kids wanting to keep going even when it's hard. I think that's an incredible lesson. Thank you.
Kinsey, we certainly appreciate all your work this year. This is a very challenging year to do what you're doing, and just incredible to hear the stories. And I just know this is going to go to greater heights with you. And thank you for all you've done this year. Appreciate it.
Thanks again. I think next up is Mr. Thompson. I've heard about this one.
So I'm Sean Thompson, and I am the middle school innovation teacher. Miss Carol Dunn also teaches some of the courses that we have at the middle school through Project Lead the Way. She is not here tonight, but I'll mention some of those courses that she teaches as well. So to begin with those courses, I teach 2 courses. Fall semester, I taught computer science for innovators and makers. Similar to what Mackenzie was saying, this class is a little difficult considering the circumstances. It's designed to be very hands-on, so we're working with microbits, so microcontrollers, various inputs and outputs that we can hook up to that. And we have a class set to share. Well, there's just no reasonable way to disinfect those without destroying them. So there is an emulator that we can use in that course, so that's what we did during the fall to kind of simulate how these different things work. So the kids didn't get the experience of, hooking up a pressure sensor or, how does a servo work? We talk about it. We can use the emulator to simulate that, but they didn't get the actual, hands-on experience that this would have provided. Then this semester, currently, I am teaching app creators. So as the name insinuates, students are working on how do you design, program an app. So they're quite familiar with playing with apps, but what's the background to that? How do we actually make it work? And then Miss Dunn teaches a medical detectives course, design and modeling, as well as automation and robotics. So why STEM education? What I'm seeing is students are having a lot of fun. Why? Because it gives them a chance to be creative. It gives them a chance to problem solve. It definitely hits on the college and career readiness piece. We are providing students with something they might look forward to, beyond high school. This might give them, an idea of where they want to go with that. Collaboration. Most everything we do is designed to work with a partner, with a team, to put together, certain projects, problem solving. So we can still do that. They can talk amongst one another as they do these different projects. So in computer science for innovators and makers, with the microbits, they were given different scenarios. So the last project they worked on, they had to come up with some sort of security device. So how could they, arm and disarm that? Do they want to use LED lights to flash? Do they want to use sound? So they had to, given that scenario, decide what inputs and outputs they wanted to use to make it happen. And it was great to see, what students came up with. One of the interesting things I find is, a lot of students just want you to tell them, okay, what's wrong here? Tell me what's wrong so I can fix it. And my first inclination is, well, did you talk to your partner, your team? Did you look at what you've done to try to problem solve amongst yourself? So they get a little frustrated when that's my response. But again, I think long term, that collaboration piece is going to be essential no matter what they do beyond high school. So cross-curricular. So, how does what we're learning in my class relate to some of the other classes at the middle school? We talk about algorithms, step-by-step instructions on how you do things. When we first start both of these courses that I teach, they're working through algorithms to learn how to do it. So one example I put here is it's no different than reading a recipe card in Miss Roby's Family and Consumer Science class. That walks you through how you're going to make whatever you're trying to create there. Same thing in our class. If you're trying to create an app initially, well, here's our step-by-step approach on how to do that. How do we design the main screen? How do we program it? Then we also talk about flowcharts, just to, again, get their brains working. How are you going to put this together? No different than in an English language arts class when you're doing the tree writing piece and deciding, what's that final product going to look like. So we create flowcharts in both the computer science class and the app creators class. And then finally, the programming piece is essential to both the courses that I teach. And that relates right into Ms. Dunn's class when the students are working on robotics. So at this time, I'd like to introduce one of my students that I had both fall semester and this semester. He has also taken Ms. Dunn's classes as well. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Braden Bobble. He's an 8th grade student. And he's going to share some information with you, as well as demonstrate the robot. Braden, would you like to share with the Board of Education what you enjoyed most about the different STEM classes that you take?
What I've enjoyed most is cooperation, being able to be with your peers. Also enjoy the hands-on experience, being able to build things. Also like creativity, being able to create things.
When you designed your robot, why did you maybe have a little bit of advantage over some of your peers?
I took in your class. I have coding experience from your class.
So when they're building these robots, when I surveyed my students, several of them were not currently enrolled in Ms. Dunn's class, but several are this semester. So I'm curious to see at the end of the school year how did what they learned in my two classes kind of translate. But Braden was one of the few students that was enrolled in both at the same time, and through the programming that we had done in my class that helped him in making his robot work. Ideally, we would do this on a phone pad. On the tile here makes it a little more challenging. So to conclude, I would just like to share some goals that I have with this program going forward. A lot of the students at this point have not had much experience with coding. And I teach 7th and 8th grade students. So what I would like to incorporate is what's called Hour of Code through code.org. It's a chance where every student in the building, every staff member could experiment with coding, see how it works. So that students that may see, we offer computer science for innovators, makers, or app creators, I have no clue what that is. At least this gives them a little background as to some of the stuff that we do in the two classes that I teach, and that correlate right along with the robotics piece that Ms. Dunn teaches as well. So that's something I would like to incorporate before the end of the year, just to give 6th graders exposure, or 7th and 8th graders that I don't currently have, some exposure to coding, which is essential to the courses I have. And then also, Ms. Dunn and I have been in conversation about starting a VEX robotics club, whether that be during SMART period or after school. Those could be students that are currently in our classes or students that just want to try it out, see if they like it. So that's something we're exploring. And then kind of a long-term goal would be, could we put together a competition team? So could we compete against other schools and designing robots to do certain things? So I thank the Board of Education for adopting this project Lead the Way opportunity. I think kids are having fun with it. It definitely, as Braden said, gives them some hands-on experience, which with the pandemic we're in, I think is essential. Any questions you guys have?
Braden, did you do this with a kit or did you have this idea? If there was a robotics club, would you join it? Thank you for sharing.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
Thank you, Sean. We look forward to going into next year and seeing how you build upon this year's base program. Wonderful job.
Thanks again. And next we have Mr. Bumbaugh and Mr. Malloy. I guess that's kind of what I envision right there in Project Lead the Way. That's, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I have my turn. Yeah.
All right, well, everyone is getting there. It's just a little data and write-up that I have for the course. My name is Michael Malloy. I teach the biomedical science course. And so I thought it'd be nice to kind of hear what the students were thinking of it. So I made a little survey, and you can kind of just look through. I'm not going to read you percentages or anything like that. But the overall feel from the survey was there was a lot of positive feedback about students liking the course, engaging into the course, and even kind of getting a feel for what biomedical careers are available to them and even their interests in them or disinterests, as we saw we dissected a heart. So there's the data right there if you'd like to look through that. But I liked some of this. It was nice to know that they were enjoying seeing the biology stuff that they've learned or are currently learning in biology class. I do have some both ways. They're enjoying seeing what they're learning in class and then also doing a little application beyond what they've done in a biology class. So they're really latching onto that. And then also some of them who hadn't learned those concepts yet, they were able to understand it enough to appreciate the kind of application of the biology, and then they later on learned about it in biology, and they were pleased to see that connection as well. So I also have some little write-ups here. There's a little open-ended question for them. It's on the second page. Just some of the things the students wrote about the course. And once again, they were pretty positive. They were liking the challenges from the questions we asked, as well as just the course in general. They, like I said, they like the challenge. They like the kind of fun aspect of it. You're put into the position of certain jobs in the medical profession or the criminal investigations we did in the first semester, and they like that application to it. So then there's just a whole bunch of pictures. I'll walk you through them. The first set you see is a student. He's doing some micropipetting into a gel electrophoresis that they used. In our criminal investigation, we had persons of interest, and we collected their DNA, and we broke up the DNA and ran it through some gel so we could compare it to what we had in the crime scene to our persons of interest, and we were able to rule out people or even draw some attention to some people depending on what they had as a result. And it was all they made the gels, they broke up the DNA fragments, they ran them through, they analyzed it, and they all turned out really well. You can see one of the students' examples there. Down below, it's our fingerprinting, and on the next page is our actual crime scene. The students really liked it. It was the second week of school or so. They walk in and they see this victim, or trying to figure out if they are a victim from a homicide or accidental death. And we learn about along the way how to decide if it's accidental versus homicide versus natural causes. And ruling out this person's interest, as you saw in the previous pictures. On the next slide was the big, I don't want to be a doctor, or I don't want to do anything like this anymore kind of deal. That was our heart dissection. Surprisingly, I thought there was going to be some people that were against it, as far as like they're really put off. Only maybe one or two that said, I'm not going to be a nurse or a doctor, or at least doing anything where I see the inside of someone's heart any longer. But the students really liked it. We located the chambers and the valves, and we kind of we fed string through it so we can follow the blood flow through all the major arteries and in and out of the heart, and where they went to the lungs and the body, and we kind of had some exploration on that. And then also, incidentally, we have a defective heart in this picture that we have. Someone determined they had a hole between the two valves. So that was actually our death student, the person who had passed away in the crime scene. They were investigating their heart specifically. And then on the last page, we have some pictures of students that in our next unit, we were talking more about what's going on inside the doctor's office and how they talk to patients and get information and organize that information. And then we ran into some physical exams where they're collecting vitals or analyzing their symptoms and trying to pinpoint what their diagnosis might be. And in this case, you can see the students here are drawing blood. It's like a fake blood, but they were simulating a phlebotomist and how they could draw the blood from the arm. We went through the procedures, and including like the disinfection. So they were practicing all of that fully as a phlebotomist would. And then we went on and analyzed the blood test that we took from the arm to determine cholesterol and sort of blood levels, I guess, in hemoglobin, how hydrated they were, and stuff like that with some numbers. So that's kind of our overview of what we've done. I've kind of talked through this last page already, but some of the current challenges are obvious with the COVID-19 restrictions that we have. It'd be nice to kind of put them in groups and have them just kind of sit there and talk through it and work through it. But with our distancing that we do, obviously that's a restriction. And then also something that we were really encouraged to do in our training was to bring in professionals in the field about the job that we're currently doing. And since we can't bring those in, I think be a little bit more engaging. Fortunately, we actually have Mrs. Bellard. She has some experience with crime scene data collection and analysis, so she was able to come and talk to them about that. That was one of the previous jobs that she had. As far as our future goes for this, I see a lot of interest from students who didn't take the course this year, and I imagine the numbers will be similar, if not greater, next year. And moving on into our next course, I think they're really excited to kind of see our next course that Thomas will be teaching, as far as the human body goes and the interactions of all of our body systems, muscles, respiration, stuff like that.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That laser?
Okay, no. Uh, yeah, you might want, yeah, whatever you think is appropriate, whether it is or not. I'll say very good. All right, so Project Lead the Way is the curriculum that we're using, and oh, I didn't plug it in. I plugged it into the other computer, which is probably gone. Oh no, it's here. Good. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Working? Yeah. All right. It's not going to be real bright, so it will be up to you. All right. So Project Lead the Way. The letters are PLTW. That's why we call it PLTW. And this is not easy to see, but it's okay. In the bottom left is Indonesia, part of Indonesia. And so they were working on a response to a tsunami. And eventually an earthquake happening up there in Los Angeles or San Francisco. And a tsunami is a huge wave caused by the earthquake that will travel across the ocean and hit them. All those red, orange things are buoys on the ocean that can give data so that they can have a response. And so they looked at the ones, you can see a glob near Hawaii. They looked at something near Hawaii going off, and that would only be about 7 hours for that tsunami to hit down the bottom left. And if it's only like 500 miles away, like that buoy up there, then it's an hour away. So we talked about systems responses to emergencies, and like Johnstown, when there's an emergency, who gets it first? How's it spread out? This was a scale drawing for architecture, and there are special rulers for this, architectural rulers, also an engineering kind of ruler. And they could do a little math, but architects don't want to do that. They want to get it out as quick as possible, measuring things. And so that is a ruler which I have up here, which is like a 3D triangular thing. So it's got a lot of different scales on it. And so if we look at the far left, it looks like that. And that's how you do like feet and inches. It's complicated. If you want to come talk to me, we can talk about it. We work on an online program to do some 3D design. They made this chess piece. And this is working in Tinkercad. It's from Autodesk, which does AutoCAD, if anybody know that. So it's a professional software company that helps build up their skills. VexIQ is the structural building blocks that we use, mostly plastic. Here are just a few examples of what we have to work with. And here's like a little nothing that I made up. They had to make it, first of all, just by looking at, I had a one up in front. And then they had to write instructions how to make it. So they understood how hard it is, like with IKEA, to make good instructions. Yeah, that is not an easy task. Here they are working on something. Can't tell right now what it is, but they're going from instructions. Doing our best to stay spread out. But it's more than just like putting together with instructions. We talk about why things are named what they are. So everything in VexIQ has names based on engineering names. And so if I look, for example, at, by the way, they're making an inclined plane. So that's a 2 by 12. Where does the 2 come from? And the 3 just tells how many they should have in their pack. So just like with IKEA, they're making sure they have everything. So the 12 is actually a weird word. We have a lot of words in engineering that normal layperson does not use in this way. Like pitch could be music. Pitch of a roof is different. Here, a pitch is a repeated pattern, and that's what's used to measure a distance. And so there's 12 holes going across the top, and 2 main ones on the side. It also gets used for like a screw, the distance between threads, or on a gear, the distance between teeth. So why is it called a small chassis corner connector? Well, there's a large, but chassis means that it's a structural support, so it needs to be a tight fit to hold everything together. You don't want it to come apart. Everything depends on the chassis. Ah, there's my incline plane. These are what are known as simple machines. An incline plane is a ramp. And we can use it to talk about something called work. Now, work in the normal world is a little different than work in the physics world. So if I have Mr. Benton go out and try to lift his car for 30 seconds, he put a lot of work in. But he did not put any physics work in because it didn't move. It's got to move. If Ms. Bohr walks around the track once in her workout, she did no work. She went a distance, but it's about something called displacement, where you started and ended only. So that's not work. And so we talk about with that inclined plane. So think about lifting a 140-pound person from the chalkboard or the whiteboard at the rail up to the top. That's a lot of work. It's a distance and a force. But if I use that ramp and at about that angle, 25 degrees, then I only have to use about 50 pounds of pull. That's a lot less. What I give up, though, is that it's a longer distance, but we're more than glad to do that. And so that's physics work. We're also working with the microbit, and this is what he was talking about. This is a simulator on the left. It's like a little circuit board, and the left button is an A and the right button's a B, and you can push them and have programs work that you make. So here it is up close. I'm lighting up A at the moment. He was talking about LEDs. Those are the LEDs. It's a 5x5 grid of LEDs available. Lots of other things, light sensor, touch, other things. So there's a menu to pull from. And so you might want to react to somebody pressing button A, and they use this thing called blocks that makes it more visual. And you pick out a certain thing that has to fit in that block. Only certain things fit that go together. So it's a really great way to introduce this. And it builds up, and they show a picture of that. And eventually they have a full program. So that's what this kid's doing. He's working on making a program. Oh, wait a minute. He's working on something else that he's got in his hand there, too. So I eventually got an order of these microbits in. And so they were working on it. And here he's looking at the screen simulator. And that to the left is a microbit circuit board. And it can plug into something called a breadboard, and you can do more extensive things with it. Now, these students. So I handed these things out, and a group of 6 seniors, just on their own, said, hey, let's make a rock, paper, scissors game. So they were working, and just listening to them was great. They were making mistakes. They were trying to fix it. That's called debugging and programming. And so eventually they got to it, where they had a working program. So I gave them 5 minutes to go ahead and play each other. And they were like, they were loving it, okay? So I thought it'd be nice if you would play their game they made. So these are connected. They can connect to a computer the way these students work, or they can be connected to a battery, which yours is. So go ahead and take it out. Don't worry, you can't hurt it, even though it feels like you could.
Thank you.
So you two will play each other. We still play each other.
Okay. So the way we'll do this is the A button. So let me go back.
We're not getting graded.
Huh?
We're not getting graded.
No.
Don't worry, we can reassess.
That's right.
That's why Carol Dunn didn't come back. She gave us one of these tests the last time. We all failed.
All right. So make
Don't
sure
get her
the,
back.
happy face, whatever the robot face eyes is, make sure that's pointing up. So we got it. A's on the left. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then you press that. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Here we go. scissors. Looks like she
Where did I go wrong?
Oh, okay.
scissors.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, just hit the egg.
Yeah.
No,
No, I
hit
am
this.
pressing it.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm malfunctioning.
I will get you another one.
I'm malfunctioning already.
No, hit it.
Yeah, mine's not.
I had it back up because I thought, well,
I thought I'm doing something and nothing's happening.
Mine's in my box over there. Oh, there it goes.
all right, what you have?
And what do you have?
Yep. I don't feel bad, Alan, if you
Don't
didn't
feel
get.
bad at all.
Okay, here we go.
Well,
Yes.
a square would be a rock.
So now hit the egg.
There's no rounds on here. Nothing round.
Ready now.
Like Minecraft. Whole
There you
square.
go. Paper.
I was scissors.
Ah,
I got you.
what happened? Rock. That's rock. I mean, it's a horrible rock, but hey, their first time. And scissors. Oh, but you win with your horrible rock.
You're a winner, and you know, I always knew you were a winner.
All right, go ahead and put them back in.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your
Oh,
support.
I forgot.
You turn these off, just unplug them? or-
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really good.
Great. Is it too late to sign up for the class?
My husband's a second.
No. Oh, you want to do what?
Yeah, I was just taking a picture
Oh,
for my.
okay. Did you get it?
Yeah,
Thanks, sir.
because they're cool.
How'd you do it?
Oh,
Did
you're
you get Alan or did he get?
She's a winner. I'm a winner.
Oh, no. That was fun.
Thank you so much for our presenters tonight. It is exciting to see that in this difficult year, you're laying a wonderful foundation for great learning opportunities for our students, K through 12, and a chance for them to apply what they're learning in the core classrooms. And we're just proud of you. Thank you so much. Been hard on you guys to go out and learn this the first year and lay the foundation, but we're looking forward. I think you can see where the possibilities are endless for learning opportunities for our students. So I can't thank you enough. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks again. Yeah, this is what we were just talking up here. This is what we like about Project Lead the Way. This is what we envision, and we're pleasant that it's going that well, that the kids like it, and I'm very happy to see this take off. So look forward to it expanding as we move on.
I'd just like to say the 2 years that we spent researching Project Lead the Way, we became more and more excited with each visit to other schools. I can't wait to see what you're going to do non-COVID and see how far we can progress. Great job. Great job.
Moving on, did we have any announcements, visitors, anyone sign up? No? Okay. We'll move into the treasurer's report then. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to ask, how did everybody know about what things you needed for the classroom? I think that's awesome. What is it? Did you send out a list or?
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Was everything on the wish list purchased, or is it an ongoing? Is this an ongoing thing, or? Okay. Great.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Any other comments on any of the other items? Call the roll, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Mr. Dixon?
Yes, members of the board, it's my pleasure to introduce you this evening to Kelly Gorey. Kelly is an attorney with the Rich and Gillis Law Group, LLC, and they have extensive work with tax incentives. And within the last number of months, we've had some activities in the areas of TIFs. And so, in speaking with Mr. Swager, he felt it would be nice to have somebody come in and just kind of talk about the TIF, talk about options we have as school districts and don't have as school districts and why that is, and maybe address a couple issues relative to the most recent ones we've had introduced to us, so that we can better understand this process. Because as a growing district, we are going to have more and more of this type of activity, and we've had in past years as well. With our tripartite agreement we have in place with New Albany, Licking Heights, and us. Why Rich and Gillis? Rich and Gillis has worked with other school districts extensively over the years in this area. And adjacent to us, Licking Heights, who's also a member of the tripartite agreement we have in place with New Albany. And they have worked with them extensively. And Licking Heights is dealing with an inordinate number of tax incentives currently. So felt that most appropriate to call the Rich and Gillis Law Firm, and Kelly was available this evening to come out. And thank you for your patience to our presentations, Kelly. And thank you for being here. We look forward to working with you here.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me and having me. I am Kelly Gorey with Rich and Gillis Law Group, and I am the primary abatement attorney in our office. We do pretty much solely real property tax work. Obviously, one of the big components of that is tax incentives and tax abatements. So the three primary types, and I'm sure the board is aware, are the tax increment financing. We all call it a TIF. We have the community reinvestment area abatement, which is a CRA, and then we have the enterprise zone. You will likely, as a district, see all three of these at some time in the future if you have not already. The TIF, it is not a true tax abatement. What it does is it takes the real property taxes that would have been paid to each taxing entity within the taxing district. Of course, the Board of Education receives the primary amount of taxes from real property. And instead of distributing it to those entities, it gives them to the municipality, township, county, that then uses those as funds for bonds to construct infrastructure. So it's a development tool that allows, I mean, quite frankly, it gets kind of competitive between the various municipalities, townships, counties, in attracting new development to their locality. But the superintendent had a great point that there have been 2 TIFs recently that have come before the district. And these actually are 2 nearly perfect examples of what the municipality can do without the Board of Education's approval. One is a more favorable option to the district. The other one is a not so favorable option to the district. So the revised statutes allow a township, municipality, county to pass a TIF where it can defray 75% of the taxes from the increase in revenue that results from the new improvements on the property for a 10-year period without the approval of the Board of Education. So the Jersey Township TIF that the board saw, I think it was back in December, that is an example of the township utilizing their maximum statutory authority to pass a TIF without the Board of Education having to meet here today and pass a resolution approving of that TIF. So unfortunately, there was no revenue sharing proposed. Certainly did not look to me as there was even perhaps any intent to notify the district of its intent to do this. And reason being is they didn't need your approval. So we see this all the time. And then the other example is the more cooperative agreement through the city of New Albany, where this is what we call a full non-school TIF. A non-school meaning all of the funds that would have been received by the district through the real property tax revenue from the new improvements to the property are in fact distributed to the Board of Education. So this again was another example of the municipality acting within their statutory authority without needing your approval, but where it's as if the TIF had never been passed. So it's a hold harmless. That's obviously much more favorable to the district than what the Jersey Township TIF was. And we see both all the time. So, one of the ways that this can become more advantageous to the districts is if the municipality approaches you more in advance and says, we have a developer, we are sitting down at the table speaking with him about coming up with ways to fund the infrastructure for the project. And what we advise our districts, of course, is, well, let's negotiate for the full non-school TIF to protect the district's revenue going forward. So while it is not a direct loss of tax revenue that you're already receiving, it is definitely a future loss of revenue that you would have otherwise received if the property were not abated. Of course, there's the argument that if the property were not abated, the development would go elsewhere and it would not be built. But certainly in this area, many developments are coming here. So it's always, I think, in the district's best interest to act on these as soon as they possibly can. Now, both of these you didn't have an opportunity to act because the municipality could do this without your consent. But there are, and you will see many where the municipality will come to you and say, we're going to do a 30-year TIF with 100% of the increase in tax revenue being abated. You would have to approve that. So, but in those instances, that's the opportunity to perhaps have your council or superintendent, treasurer sit down with the folks at the municipality and say, let's see how we can also protect the district's revenue through this development. So one of the things I often do is draft revenue or school compensation agreements. So that's part of my job as an abatement attorney. And that would be something I would do on the district's behalf, such that you would like us to handle abatements for you going forward. Let's see. So I talked about yes, please.
Question. As we look at the TIFs that have been presented, and you have one from a township and you have one from parties to an existing tripartite agreement, which is an expansion of that area. If both of these proposed TIFs are on the same property, how does that work itself out priority-wise?
They cannot be.
Therein lies the dispute.
Yeah. So if the property is annexed into the municipality, it ceases to be in the township and the township cannot tip it. Now, there was a Supreme Court case years ago, not probably about 15, 20 years ago. There is and I'm going to apologize, I certainly am not an annexation expert, but there is a certain type of municipal annexation that's allowed in the statutes where the municipality annexing the property was able to enact a TIF and take away the township's revenue, but it was only on what's called a type 2 annexation. So, but in theory, you will never have the competing jurisdictions because it's only in one or the other. So as soon as it's annexed into the municipality, they would acquire the jurisdiction over it in terms of a tax incentive. Great question though. Does anybody else have any questions? I know that was a real quick, I don't want to be too boring.
Can that same parcel or a group or parcels, can those same parcels be then annexed by, let's say, New Albany without a TIF? Can they just go ahead and annex
Yes.
that and it
Yes.
supersedes the TIF from Jersey Township?
Depends on when the improvements were built. So if the improvements were already existing on the property, so in other words, let me use let's just use 2020. Let's say Jersey Township passes the TIF 2020. The improvements are constructed in 2021, 22. Then in calendar 2025, New Albany annexes the property. It would still be subject to the TIF in Jersey Township.
But if they just annex open field,
Right. That they
then
didn't-
build later, then it would go to New Albany since the
Correct.
improvements have occurred after the annexation,
Correct.
which is what's going to occur down there more than likely
Right.
that we're dealing with.
Right. So once the property is out of the jurisdiction of the original township, if it has no improvements, then it wouldn't be subject to the TIF. Then
So that's where the developers would be
Right.
dealing with those two outside of us,
right.
determining what TIF they would rather have. I mean, that's really what
Yes,
it's
correct.
going to come down to. What's more advantageous to them, build before you annex or after
You
you
bet.
annex?
And all of the townships around New Albany are enacting their own TIFs
Sure.
to hopefully keep
Right,
the
entice
properties
them
in
to-
the township.
Is the
Great question.
township TIF, as I just heard, I thought, are they maximum of 10 years allowed?
No, they
Okay.
can do the whole 30. But you would have to approve it.
Beyond, that's what I mean, 10 years
Yes.
and less without our approval.
That's correct. 10 years.
75%, 10
Yep.
years or less. But
Yes.
on the tripart agreement, they're the ones, 30 years, or how does that work?
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen a 30-year proposal.
Right, we've got a
We've
30-year
seen 15
proposal,
on
which
all the
Right.
previous ones.
that threw me for a loop. We've always dealt with 15-year
And
on
I
these.
apologize because I have not actually seen the school compensation agreement.
It's similar to what we've had. They're just asking for 30 years instead of 15,
Sure.
which we didn't know how that falls out. What rights do we have? Because I know the 10-year and 75% on the municipal side, but I didn't know on the private, on the entity there. Is there
Sure.
no limit into the?
That's a great question. You can actually enter into the school compensation agreement with the municipality that would say, we, the Board of Education, give future consent to any TIF, and it can be up to 30 years, so long as the following conditions in the revenue sharing agreement are met.
So if we're holding harmless, it doesn't hurt us to have
Correct.
those extra 30 if we're doing a hold harmless
Right.
situation.
Oh,
The extra
exactly.
years helps us in the sense that we're not going to be fighting it out in 15 years.
Right,
That's the work
Yeah.
this law firm does.
Right. Okay.
right.
I don't
Yes,
mean
and-
to.
and
But we have to
definitely whenever the board's approval is needed,
Mhm.
obviously the district has more negotiating leverage with the municipality. For example, on this Jersey Township TIF, the statutes do allow you to object, but your objection is just, we don't appreciate you not speaking with us regarding the development and or letting us know of the revenue impact sooner, but since your actual vote of approval wouldn't be needed.
Our only recourse in those is basically objection to it. And
Correct.
getting people to object to it. I mean, we don't have any legal remedy for it.
I just did one this week, and my treasurer is waiting for either the township fiscal officer or their consultant to phone her, and no one has yet.
How
But-
long do you have after the TIF has been levied, let's say from Jersey Township? How long does the school district have to respond to that? Is
2
there a
weeks.
sunset? 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's only 2 weeks.
Okay, and
They
what
only have to
happens if
provide
that's
14-day
expired?
notice.
That's expired, now what? What recourse?
Your objection period has passed.
But have we objected?
But the objection
within the
isn't
2
even
weeks?
worth anything, so that's the,
Had we objected within the 2 weeks, there's still little recourse to that.
Correct.
it's just a public stance that
Yeah,
you're
it is.
objecting to it.
Absolutely.
There's nothing else.
Just a declaration.
Yeah.
It's a declaration. You got it. Yep.
And when we get those and Mr. Dixon gets them, he signs for them. We're just signing except that we
Accept.
got
Correct.
it. Refusing to sign doesn't delay anything. It
No.
doesn't, I mean, they're delivering it's like a subpoena or anything else. You're just acknowledging receipt. You're not agreeing or
Correct.
disagreeing. I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
Yep.
All right. Well, and for the rest of the board, the village here, soon to be city, will be doing many of these as well, I would expect. More probably on the community, development side, not necessarily TIFs, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be, for the board, we need to make sure we understand what our rights are, what our negotiating points are. We certainly have much better relationship here with the village and the city to have those conversations than perhaps
Yes.
we enjoy with some of these other private entities that are going to come in as they like.
But do we have to respond, I assume, to the latest one, which has 45 days in that original contract
You-
from New Albany? We have to respond to that, or we
You do not, because it's a
Okay.
non-school TIF, so long as it is a full non-school TIF
Okay,
and you will receive all your revenue, you do not have to respond.
okay.
And probably in the school compensation agreement that works in connection with that, while I haven't seen an actual copy of that, probably you agreed in that letter to not object, so long as the conditions in the school compensation agreement are met, one of which would be any TIF is a non-school TIF, is
Right.
my guess.
It is. That's correct. On that original one,
Sure.
as long
Yeah.
as it was as long as we were held harmless.
But maintaining a cooperative relationships with your local municipalities is always a plus. One of the things I say in my objection letter is, perhaps you could have asked us to have a representative sit at the table with you and talk about this development and how we can arrive at some more mutually beneficial ways to get this done.
So as a board, should we proact out to our township folks and kind of make sure, because we wouldn't even know this is going on. They either approach us or we get our
Correct.
notification and we got 2 weeks to deal with it.
Correct.
So as a board, we need to reach out, just to
I think you
put
should.
our viewpoints out there too, because we're in Liberty, Monroe,
Yep.
Jersey, we're not in.
It's coming no matter what.
Yeah, we're going to make sure we understand and as a board have expectations of what we'd like to see in these if they're going forward.
I
Right.
agree with that.
Absolutely. Great questions, and thank you again, Superintendent, for inviting me. It's nice to meet all of the board members, and hopefully I can help you somehow in the future. I'll leave my business card as well, but certainly give me a call if you need any help on abatements. We also do real property tax challenges, board of revision, exemptions, so we'd be available for that as well. Thank you very much.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
Kelly.
it.
Thank
Thank
Have
you.
a good
Appreciate
evening.
it.
All right. Yeah, we'll move into your recommendations.
Chuck, I want to get her business card. Our
Yeah.
property is tipped, so our personal property is tipped, so I just have a real interest in where that goes to.
With regard to my recommendations this evening, I have 3 before the board. The first is approval of the 2022-23 district calendar as presented. This has been through the calendar committee and being recommended. We're a little bit behind on our process because, as you know, we like to stay 3 years ahead. It helps us with our planning. We'll work with the committee yet this spring on the 2023-24 calendar to bring before you a little later this school year. But I bring the 22-23 calendar for your approval this evening. Under item B, we've received a request for reduction of fees. Actually, it's a elimination of fees, as has been done before, for the Johnstown Elite Track Club for the 2021 school year. I left as a rate of here for board discussion and determination as to what that will be. Under item C, to approve a memorandum of understanding with the JEA related to the use of sick leave during time of quarantine. Things changed as of December with federal law. And right now we have a situation where teachers could be quarantined because of close contact or otherwise, and be at home well, and be able to teach from home. And we give them those options under the original MOU we have approved. But no longer now can they use sick leave during quarantines for other than their sickness or the sickness of their child. So theoretically, they could be at home quarantined and not sick and not meet the sick leave requirements. Therefore, we're asking approval of this MOU to grant that ability for those teachers to take sick leave as opposed to having to take leave without pay. JEA has reviewed this and they have approved it, and I bring it to you this evening for approval. Those are my 3 recommendations this evening.
Give a second.
Second.
About this, that door operation as they were before. I'm assuming that's what it'll be again.
Yes, my understanding is it's outdoors, and it's also during times when other teams are using the area, so it's not a matter of giving access, closing up, opening up facilities or closing facilities. So there's no cost per se for this group, and therefore they've made the request at 0 if the board is so inclined.
Okay. If you want to.
Honestly, it's a club that I do not know. Our school, I don't think, they may put flyers out through the schools. I'll turn to the administrator to see if anybody has seen any flyers.
I just want to make sure. I know they had pretty
can't
good
answer
success
that.
2 years ago. I just want to make sure that we get notification out that interested kids get in, and it's not just an invitation only, track club.
For any of these types of clubs that offer opportunities for our students, they usually send in a flyer to our office, get it approved, and then we approve it, and they can put it out, or they can print them out and bring them in, and sometimes we'll put them out for them. But for this particular group, I have not seen any request for flyers.
Okay.
So we're more than happy to help with that, but it has to be initiated by the group.
Sure. All right. I'm good. Any other questions? Call the roll.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. On to recommendations.
Yes, under personnel, as listed, asking the board to approve our food service employee at 5.5 hours per day for Bonnie Nunley. Just met her today. She's delightful. She's excited about being on staff, and Max is excited to have her. Under item B, asking approval of the following of the listed volunteer positions: Mike Triplett for 7th, 8th grade softball, and Blair Warner for the musical choreographer, which he's done for quite a few years for us. Under item C, to approve Julie Elke as food service substitute for the 2020-21 school year. And the final recommendation I have for the board this evening is to authorize the employment of a media arts communication instructor for the 2021-22 school year and approve the job description for same as presented. This is the job description that was presented originally. I realize it's got everything but the kitchen sink in it, and we can adjust that and do a revision at some point once we see the candidates. And I'm certainly open to that if the board sees the need to change, but I'm I can assure you that there is probably no duty that this person would do for us is not included in there. So I'm open to any suggestions or changes. Haven't received any as of yet, but you all should have a copy of that that you've had for weeks. Those are my personnel recommendations for this evening.
Can I get a motion for A through D?
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I thought we had, they would need to meet requirements with a Ohio Department of Education teacher's license. And we reviewed different options, I think, for that, including CTE, training and license. Yeah. With regard to the job description, that was a work in progress as we heard more comments as to what this person would cover within our district. And we started out with high school program, went to middle school, then PAC equipment. So with each of those, we changed the job description to include everything we were hearing from the board. So we have a good job description now. I think it's pretty exhaustive. And I'm open to that, but we could use that as a starting point to go out and look for someone. And can we find someone that can come in and do all that? Boy, wouldn't that be wonderful? But if we need to make some changes, we can, Ruth Ann. No, we wouldn't do that. Promise you.
Can we commit to, on the job description though, after interviews before we employ,
Sure.
having that finalized
Not a question.
for the board? You know what I mean?
Because
After
I will sit
interviews,
here and
but
tell you
before
it's
we
too long.
employ.
That
It's too long.
it's definitely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that makes sense. I think
Because we'll have
It's
another
too long,
motion at
too
some
broad.
point to employ, right?
Sure.
So if
Sure.
we can get it before we actually employ. Okay.
Yep. We are. Sure.
Any more?
I also wanted to say that I had said this on Friday, that I do think that it's important that the person that we're looking for, the candidate, have the certification in Adobe. If they're going to be instructing students or working with students in the Adobe software, that would be critical in my opinion. And if they've already gotten that certification, that should just go right along with the requirement of being in mass communication media resources for the looking for.
So you'd recommend that Adobe, if we find that to be in with this work as described, then that would be one of the things we list in that job description as we have other software.
If you're gonna, we have the Adobe suite here, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Premiere Pro, Adobe After Effects. I mean, it's all the video software. It would be foolish to hire someone that has no idea what they're doing with Adobe. I think it should be listed in the minimum qualification.
We can certainly look into that. I'm not there on what is actually, whether Adobe is appropriate or not. I would have to turn to those who know that.
It's not an easy program.
Yeah, I can't say if
we
it's
wouldn't be able to
needed.
go up to the board and start doing it. We would need
Right.
some instruction with that.
It's never come up in our work and research in putting the equipment and the program together with the media arts supplier. Okay, but we will ask that. We'll work with that, and it may make perfect sense. I don't know, and I did get your email. I haven't got back because I didn't get an answer yet.
And I sent that late Friday.
Yep.
After everything.
Yep.
But
I'm usually pretty quick in getting back, but I didn't get any answers on that quickly as to whether that's something we need to require, if it's really we're
If it's
looking at.
critical to that operation of the equipment we just bought, then it, you know, I mean, it
Then
needs
it's
to be
something
in
we
there.
certainly ought to consider, and we would put that down just like anything we put in the job description relative to software,
Right.
spreadsheets, PowerPoints, and all that.
I'll defer to the experts on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
just
know
don't know
that.
enough
I didn't
on
know
it.
that yeah, with the map that it's like. Yeah.
You've used a lot of this, I guess. And that's the kind of people I want to listen to
So,
to see
and-
what we're going
And
to need.
absolutely, and that's the thing.
Yep.
I just want to make sure who we get in here knows what they're doing and doesn't say, "Oh, I can do this."
Right.
We wouldn't know because
Oh,
this is not in our.
So do we.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he
promise.
does know. He's an expert in it. So.
Yep.
Yep.
That's what I was hoping for too. I thought the same thing, that they would have a portfolio to show us, just like in our.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the
Yeah.
input, and thanks for the
Yep.
question, Ian.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
On to committee reports. Any committee reports? None?
We have our. Yeah.
Should I just beat my head onto the wall over here on that one? Nothing, you know.
I know Tim's working on that and
Okay.
do some changes there.
Okay. It is what it is. Ruth Ann, do you have Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Maybe yet this week.
I was aggressive. I thought maybe this week. But okay.
Uh,
Anxious, not
committee
aggressive.
Report. Would you like to know more about the weight room? Well, we're getting closer, but the person who installed the flooring has come down with COVID, so we have some corrections on the flooring. So we can't go any farther till he's well, and Debbie's checking on him, and we're also checking on a few items on the punch list that we'd like to have done before we pay the bill. Other than that, we're looking great. So thanks to everybody who's put a lot of time and effort on that project.
Any estimated timeline for finishes?
As soon as he's
I
well
mean,
with
I know
COVID.
obviously that, but assuming all that goes, I mean, after that, is it we're looking at?
You know,
Couple weeks?
the problems with the flooring are problems he's going to have to give us a timeline.
Okay.
We don't know what that would be until he is well.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a group of 4 people that went in there to put a lot of blue tape on the floor. It could be really simple or it could be complex. We just aren't flooring
Okay.
people, but
Sure.
we need to have it repaired, or not repaired, but addressed before we take possession and pay that bill. So that would be it.
Fantastic. I appreciate all your work on that, Ruth Ann. It's come out. If anyone hasn't been over the weight room, it's fantastic. I mean, there's no doubt about how well that project has turned out. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We do have a few other items we're going to have to discuss as a board to finish that project up outside of what we've scoped here. You know, just finishing touches, some Wi-Fi. We want to do badge access so that we don't have keys floating around like we did in the other, you know, things like that. That just we're going to move forward on those unless we hear any objection. We'll just send a list around and Dale can move forward and Debbie can move forward on getting those items finished up. They're lower dollar items, just to kind of finish that out. And then we have some other items we'll have to discuss with the group at some point.
Yeah, we're going to submit a list late as soon as we can, as soon as the weather breaks and everybody gets well. We'd like to look at the outside of the building. We have a lot of rust on the outside of the building, and we'd like to get an estimate on how to fill that rust and sand it appropriately and paint it so it'll last for another 30 years, we hope. So anybody that has any input in that or would like to give input, we'd like to hear about it. We have some drainage issues we have to address, and we have some lighting issues yet for the exterior. So those are things that were not in the project, but now that we've got it so smiling so nicely in the inside, we'd like to do something with the rust on the outside. So we've got 2 benches on the outside too, if anyone wants to feel charitable and put a bench on the outside of the building with their name on it. We need 2 of them. Thank you, that's a commercial.
Did you get the ice shields for the road?
The what?
The ice.
The ice
Guard.
deflectors or whatever you call
Shields.
them.
Yeah, I call them ice shields,
No,
but
we did not. I'm going to put that in the outside projects.
we really need to get those
Yep.
Yeah.
on there.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Any other discussion? I think I'd like to move to executive session for personnel.
Okay.
Can I get a motion?
So
I'll
moved.
I'll second.
No actions expected afterwards. Executive session, I don't know, does that 7:55 sound right?
That looks good.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.